Success of an entrepreneur.
We've raised the bar.
Learn firsthand from successful business owners and create your own path to success.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
It's time to hit the road to growth with team lead of the Enriquez Group, Realtor Vinny.
Hi, Roach Growth listeners. Today I have Sri Chellappa. He is the president and co-founder of Engagely. Thank you, Sri, for being here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, Vinny. Hi, me.
So your platform, I mean, is for bigger companies, 100 companies or more. I mean, and I know it kind of helps coaching. It helps basically kind of keeping up track with all the different employees. I mean, but what's the elevator pitch? If someone asks you what your platform does, what's the sales pitch for it?
Yeah, so the elevator pitch really is that we help organizations build a highly engaged and high performance teams, right? And that requires obviously looking at multiple aspects. There's no silver bullet to doing that. So, we look at, ways to engage them actively because, highly engaged employees perform better. How do you build different processes to recognize them, develop them, grow them, build better connections within the organization? So all of those things are available in the tool to really help build those teams that perform better because they're highly engaged.
Where did the idea come from for this platform?
Yeah, so the idea really came from about this platform is about 7 years old now. It came originally from just my experience and talking to my partners. We had seen a lot of disengagement. A lot of organizations, people hate their jobs. They don't want to work. They don't like their manager. They feel like they're getting passed over for promotion, and somebody else who's second up better is getting promoted. So those are some of the things that we noticed. And now, a platform cannot solve all of that, but it can help organizations that want to solve that, right? At the leadership level, if you want to have a team that feels like they're working together, there's a voice for each employee where they feel that they want to get more recognition, because people feel, they're doing the job but they don't get recognized, and recognition is actually free. It doesn't even cost that much. And we know that monetary benefits only go so much. You really need to feel appreciated at work. So that's where the idea came from, that a platform to do those things would be better, because it creates this system that allows people to do that in a more fluid manner. Because you can praise somebody in a water cooler and the conversation ends there. It doesn't stay anywhere, right? But this way, you can stay on a platform, and then you can look back a year, 2 years out, and see all the different things that employees done, all the different things the employees been appreciated for, and be able to build that as a system within the entire organization.
How has COVID affect your company? Because the stuff you're talking about has even gone exponentially, even more so with COVID and people working from home remotely. How does that affect your company?
Right. So now there's a water cooler, right, that you can actually talk at. So basically now you need a system more than ever, because if you are going to praise somebody, you can send an email, and then how emails work. They get drowned out by 200 other emails, and then that becomes history. So if you have a system that tracks all of that, where you can praise somebody, build a community, and then also, if you want to train people, there's no classrooms as much. There are some classroom trainings, obviously, but you really want to have training people to take when they want to take it, not at a specific time. Like, we are all used to this Netflix model that you want to watch a show when I want to watch a show, not when friends used to read and you had to be glued to your TV at 8 o'clock. But so that model is very platform friendly, because you have a platform that you can create these online training, you can onboard people remotely, you can get them up to speed, you can then connect them with other people on a platform, you can set goals together, you can share your activities and your goals together. All of those things are now enabled by a platform like Engagely, right? So it really enables the companies to work together as one seamless organization, regardless of your employees in Chicago or St. Louis or Bangalore or anywhere else in the world, right? And people are doing that. Because of this, people are hiring in any city. They're not restricted to their local cities anymore. So this actually enabled that, and we obviously see a lot of growth. We've doubled in the last 3 years. We made Inc. 5000, and the new Inc. 5000 hasn't been announced yet, but we got a notification that we're going to make it again this year. So that's going to be great.
Well, let's rewind. Who was young Sri?
Pardon me, say it again.
who was a young Sri? Who were you at a young age? Were you basically about building businesses? Were you an entrepreneur? I mean, who was a young person?
I was just an ambitious, starry-eyed guy who wanted to do big things, and I didn't know what that meant, right? Um, I was just very driven. I didn't mind working long hours, weekends, whatever it took to do that. But I also like to have fun. So that was basically how I was. And I think I've transformed, obviously, as I gotten older. I realized, I really need to obviously channel my energy better, stay more focused, and also have a good combination of creative self as well as the business and process self, and have those work together well. So that's how I would describe myself. But I was a little bit of a maverick, in my younger years.
So a maverick, big picture. I mean, what were you thinking about? You said you wanted to do big things. What did that big thing look like for you?
When I was younger, I think I was an engineer at heart. I still am an engineer at heart. I think I wanted to to be honest, I wanted to be a rocket scientist, right? I mean, literally, that's what I wanted to be. I went to engineering school to study in that field. And I realized I was not very good at it, because I could not sit glued to a computer for hours, focusing on something very, very, deliberate and detailed, because I was just a little bit of an extrovert, and I also probably had undiagnosed ADHD. So that basically led me to believe that I probably should be in a more people-focused business where I'm talking to people, where I'm out there doing things, and I'm doing things in a more that are more diverse in nature rather than very focused in nature.
So what did that look like? Were you working for a company? Were you starting your own company? I mean, what would that look like?
Yeah. So when I was in my 20s, I graduated with an engineering degree. I realized I didn't have what it took to be what I would call a rocket scientist. So I decided to go to business school. Got my business degree in finance and international business. Ended up working for FedEx in their technology department, helping planning out their new technology back in the day, because FedEx was always in the cutting edge of technology. So I did that for a while, and then I realized, I really wanted to go out and do different things, not just work for one company. So I went to work for EY in management consulting, and that gave me this really diverse experiences where I worked with probably over the course of my 9 years there, about 50 different companies, from AT&T to American Express and the likes of those, right? And you learn a lot of different processes, you learn different cultures, you learn some of the best practices, you know what works, what doesn't work. And that's basically how my thing evolved, and I learned a lot about management practices, which led to obviously Engage Lead today.
What did that process like? Because I mean, I've had a variety of different entrepreneurs on here, and some of them go straight into building a business, right? At a young age, or building a business. Other people take kind of the journey that you took, where it's basically working in the corporate world, getting that steady paycheck, and then kind of slowly transitioning into building their business. Was it a quick turn for you, or was it, I have this idea and it's a 5-year, 6-year, 7-year of actually building it out?
It's actually a combination. So after my 9 years at EY and Capgemini, I ran into another startup founder at an airport, and we became friends. And I ended up joining him 2 years later. I literally just made friends at an airport with this guy. And he was trying to get the startup off the ground, and I joined him 2 years later. And that was kind of like my startup experience without actually having to take all the risk, because he had already started that process, right? So I was actually literally his first employee in the US, because he had an operation in India. And it was a very similar model to EY Capgemini. We were doing consulting services, so it was not fundamentally very different. It was like not completely new that I was doing. So it gave me that entrepreneurship juice, if you will, without necessarily having to start everything from scratch. We grew that company 50-fold over the course of 9 years. We sold that company to a private equity in New York. Obviously, I got a pretty decent paycheck and exit from that, where I didn't have to work if I didn't want to. But that being said, I realized that I just can't sit still and sit by a swimming pool sipping pina coladas. I have to do something, because my brain doesn't stop working. So this idea of Engagedly, came through another friend of mine, and we started brainstorming, and we said, why don't we do this? We have a little bit of a cushion, and I know that I can take this risk. And it was completely new field because I had never done HR software. I don't have an HR background per se. I manage teams and people, but I've never actually practiced the practice of HR. And also, it was not a service; it was actually a product, and product is different fundamentally from a SaaS product. To launch. And so it took me about a year and a half of struggle, where I questioned a lot. I questioned myself whether I was even doing the right thing or not. But in one day it just clicked after butting your head against the wall multiple times, and one day it cracks, and then we just suddenly got. I mean, for a year, I probably had over 150 meetings with different prospects, did not close a single client, and I was like, what am I doing here? But I was not one to give up because I felt hope that there's a hope in this product. But then we realized that there was one little change we needed to the product, and we made this change where we focused a lot around employee performance management rather than building social communities, which was the original focus within organizations. And companies were certainly interested in paying for that because there's a direct correlation between employee performance and business results. So they were like, okay, well, I'm willing to pay for that. And suddenly we closed 4 deals in 1 month. And then it just took off from there. In the first year first year of that year, we closed like 45 clients. We are well over 450 clients at this point. So it was, they say overnight success is never overnight, right? So it's kind of like that. It took a long time. All those experiences I've had working with large organizations, working with different CEOs and HR leaders or CIOs, led me to be a better salesperson, even though I'm not classically trained in sales. Also led me to be a better consultant because I could consult and understand the problem and then help solve that for them.
When you were missing out on or not closing those multitude of deals, right? The weighing of the doubt that maybe you weren't ready, I guess, to build your own company, or the product wasn't there, and then also that weighing of, hey, I really have faith in this product. What was that looking like, and how were you kind of talking to yourself? How were you kind of working through that and kind of fighting through the rejection?
I'll tell you this though, right? I was not able to close deals for almost a year. It was like 9 months actually, but what I was really encouraged by that. I was still getting a lot of interest, right? If there are companies and head of HR or CEOs willing to talk to me, that means there is something there. I'm just not getting to it. So if somebody is interested in my messaging and my brand and what I'm putting out there in trying to generate these leads, they're willing to talk to me, gave me that interest, right? If I was doing that and nobody's willing to talk to me, then I would be very discouraged. I'd be like, okay, there's just nothing is sticking, right? I knew something was going to stick. I just had to talk to enough people to really figure out what was going to stick. So that's what really kept me going, because I knew there was something there. I just hadn't figured it out yet.
And I think that's a very positive way of looking at it, right? Looking at the glass half full instead of half empty, right? And I think some people would have looked at it half empty. Is that positivity of, okay, there's positive that I'm getting it, but I'm not closing it. Where does that come from? Is that strictly mindset? Have you always kind of had that? Where did that come from?
I think it's my analytical background, I would say, as an engineer, as a math guy, and just being a puzzle solver. You always go to the root cause, right? What is the root cause of me not getting this deal? Is it because I'm not getting enough leads? Is it because my product sucks? Or is it because my brand is not there? You try to analyze all the root causes, and then you start to distill it down and start eliminating things that are not a factor. So if I'm getting, once you start distilling it down and try to solve the problem, break it down into different pieces, then you can start honing into the problem that you have to solve to get to that solution, right? And if the problem is too big, for example, I will tell you that there was another startup I tried to do right before that on e-commerce, and I just was trying to do that as a side thing just to see if this would something be more fun to do. It was an e-commerce about selling, very earth-friendly goods to kids, or not to kids, but for kids, like just, diapers that compost themselves and solution, the shampoos and things like that are very bio-friendly and organic and things like that. Great concept, right? Because people want to pay for good things for their kids. After doing that for 6 months, I realized this is a problem I cannot solve of getting sales there, because A, I cannot compete with Amazon, and B, I'm not really that differentiated. Anybody can set up a website and start selling these things, because these are not my products. I'm selling other people's product. I'm a retailer. I'm not a manufacturer or a person who owns the brand. And then I did not want to go down the path of creating a new brand. That was just not something I want to do. It was completely out of the left field for somebody like me. And plus, it didn't interest me enough. I was like, do I really want to go down the path of creating some baby product or kid product? It's not me. I couldn't see that. So I abandoned it. So the thing is that you need to know when to quit. And I quit within the first 6 months. After and I didn't spend a lot of money on it. I probably spent about 25K all in with this effort. And I realized to really fight this battle, you need to be much bigger and you need to spend a lot of money and you need to be passionate about it. And I just realized, going through the same analytical process, I was like, it's not something I can be successful in because I'm not willing to do those things. So it's the same thing, in the software world. I came from a software background, so I understood software. I understood people management. I was getting the meetings, and I knew that we could build a good product. So I think it's really going through that analytical process. So I would say it's not just. I don't necessarily believe that you should never quit. I really do believe that you should know when to quit and when not to quit. I think that hard part has to be done by taking an unbiased analytical approach where you self-reflect and say, is this something I'm cut out for or not? And not just keep banging your head against the wall just because somebody said never quit, and I think that's a bad idea.
In growing Engagely, what have been kind of the biggest hurdles you've had to work through to get to where you are today?
We are in the SaaS space, which is pretty hot. It's been hot for the last few years. And there's a lot of funding that has gone into it. I'm in St. Louis, Midwest, not necessarily the mecca of tech startups. And when I started looking at our competition, and there are a lot of startups, I will not name them, but they started raising 20 million, 50 million, 100 million, 200 million. Some of our competitors have raised well over a quarter billion with a B. And I'm here in St. Louis, trying to bring a kitchen knife to a gunfight, So I'm like, that's struggle, right? And then you realize you cannot fight their wars. You have to fight your own wars. I use the war analogy loosely here, but if you try to fight their battle, which is spend a ton of money, buy Super Bowl ads, and buy billboards on I-485 or wherever in Silicon Valley, and I can't fight that battle. That's a battle I'm destined to lose, right? I gotta fight a different battle. I gotta fight a battle of things like these, right? Doing podcasts or fight a battle of creating a niche messaging and product, and then building a brand that is different than this other brand. So you have to fight a different battle, and that's where this whole process of being analytical also comes into play, because you really got to figure out what battle that you can play that they can't play necessarily. They can't get out there and do the groundwork that I am willing to do. So that was discouraging and encouraging at the same time. Obviously, if I had $100 million, I would be like, that's great. But then I also question, would I throw that money away just like WeWork did, right? Do I want to go down the WeWork path? No. This keeps me more disciplined, keeps me more focused, and builds a more robust and what I call an anti-fragile organization for the longer run.
You definitely, as we've talked throughout this podcast, very analytical and very organized in your thoughts. And is it simply you kind of writing down and having those quiet moments to go through these thoughts? Or is there another person that or a couple people that you bounce the ideas off of, lay out your thoughts, and then kind of get their perspective on it?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Ray Dalio. I don't know if people who know. Yeah. Not everybody knows Ray Dalio, but he's probably the most successful hedge fund manager in the history of hedge funds, and was the founder of Bridgewater, which I found out Bridgewater actually turned a 30% profit in the first quarter of this year when the rest of the hedge funds were down. And one of the things he says it's in his book Principles, which is one of my favorite books, is everybody's, as a CEO, as a president, you think you're right. But the question to ask is, how do you know you're right? And how do you know you're not wrong? And I think that requires for you to really take an unbiased approach. And it's like, I'm probably right. I'm probably right 90% of the time or 80% of the time, whatever it is. But how do I know I'm right about this decision I'm going to take, or this investment I'm going to make, or this direction I'm going to take? And you have to bounce ideas and ask people to really challenge your idea in some ways. So I do have these discussions with a lot of different people within my organization, with my other partners from my last startup. We were partners, so we all have entrepreneurial mindset. And am I doing this right? This is what I'm thinking I'm doing, and here's what I'm doing. I'm laying out my reasoning behind why I'm taking that approach, and ask them to shoot holes in it. Right? Can you find holes in this approach? And then sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't, and it makes me pivot in. And I think that's a very important approach to take, because winning the debate is not what you want. You want to actually find the right answer. That's the more important thing, because ultimately that's what makes you successful in the long run for you and the organization. Because we have over 100 people. It's their livelihood too at stake here.
Do you think a younger you, that one that was, just got out of business school, would have had the ability to put their ego to check to actually allow someone else to shoot holes through their idea?
No, I'm not sure I was that person then,
Okay.
I was probably more confident of myself. Then obviously life has a way of proving you wrong. And then I also was a little bit more hot-headed, I think, at that point. I would get angry, and I would hold grudges and stuff like that, which really doesn't help anybody in the long run. So then I started, thankfully my analytical reasoning always helped out. It's like, if I'm going to hold a grudge, I'm going to get angry. How's that going to benefit me? Is it just an ego boost, or is it actually going to benefit me? I'm not going to come out ahead monetarily or emotionally. So what's the point? It's just to boost my ego. And for a few moments, that is really right. So I think that's those kind of self-talk, if you will, help me. And sometimes you just have to walk away from a battle because it's not worth it. And those are some of the things that I have changed over the years. I've gotten a lot more grounded. I don't get angry as much. I still get angry sometimes, but not as much. And I try to not burn a lot of bridges. I just don't. Even with people who may have wronged me, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna carry that burden. No, let that person carry that burden. I'm not gonna carry that burden.
Well, two questions on that. When you do, you said you still do get angry sometimes. When you do get angry, what's your process of getting through that anger? And then secondly, if someone does wrong you or does something that's negative to your business or yourself, you say you don't carry that grudge, yet I'm assuming you still remember it next time you deal with them.
Oh yeah, of course. Because now it's part of the equation, right?
Okay.
So it's another variable I have to take into consideration when I deal with a person. I know that there's a trust issue, or maybe there's an issue where they did something wrong. I'm just not going to have the same relationship. I might still have a cocktail with them at a party, but I'm not necessarily going to start a new business or have another some sort of a partnership with them in the future. Unless I'm forced to do something together, in which case it will be clearly laid out on what the expectations are, and I'll have better guardrails, if you will. So yeah, I think that's one thing I do, when you go through that. Now, when you get angry, so how I show my anger is I don't necessarily shout. I try to listen to the party, because I'm trying to figure out, maybe there's value in something they're saying, and then you realize after going through your process of maybe what they're saying is nonsense. It's not going to work, and they're not doing the job that I asked them to do. Some of them are my employees, right? And because you tell them this is how you should do it, and they don't do it, and then shit doesn't work, and I'm like, I told you not to do that. can we do this again? And if they start debating again, that's when I get angry. I'm like, listen, you've already gone down your path, has not worked. Now let's try my way, and at that point, I can get a little testy, if you will.
So do you, because I know some people that like deal with frustration, they'll walk away and then they'll go back to the situation. So you have the ability, I mean, these days to work through the frustration at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's important to work through the confrontation. You shouldn't necessarily walk away from confrontations because you don't want to be confrontational or you don't want to have that stress, emotional stress of having
not necessarily walk away forever, just walk away for a moment, take a breath, understand it, and then come back to it.
Yes. I think that's important sometimes, especially if you feel you're being hot-headed.
Yeah.
It's probably better to let's say, what, we'll talk about this later. I'll probably say something that I don't want to regret. I've done that a couple of times, where I'll get really angry and I don't want to say something that I'll regret later.
All the growth over those 7 years of building Engagely, I mean, where do you see the growth in the next 7 years?
The product Engagely is one of those products that has a huge TAM, and TAM stands for total addressable market, which means you have a bigger audience. So it's not a very niche product like a product that does maybe title check for real estate. It's a product that any company about 100 employees or over can use it, especially if they want to use a software to recognize people, build a social connection, or give online training, because those things are all needed in most organizations. Set up goals, track your goals, things of this nature. So that the TAM is huge, and because the TAM is huge, there's a lot more competition. There are over 20 major competitors that we run against, depending on the size of the company or the sector or the region we are in. There's a different set of competitors in Europe, there's a different set in the US, there's a different set in Southeast Asia and Middle East. We have clients all over the world, probably about 35 different countries, I think the last count. And so the market is huge, and anywhere they follow what I would call a non-mom and pop style of operations is a potential market. I think we can be a $1 billion company, right? I think we are in the same space, if you will, as a company like Workday, which is I think it's the last I checked was a $15 billion valuation. SAP SuccessFactors, the Cornerstones, there are all these multi-billion-dollar companies. Now they're obviously catering to the larger organizations like FedEx and Emerson and Nestle and all of that. We are not going to go down that path, but there's a whole segment of mid-market companies that can't necessarily pay for those big products because of the cost and the implementation timeline and the effort it takes to build those software out there. So that's what we call that is a mid-market. So the mid-market is where we are focused on, and I think that's probably one of the biggest segments out there, actually.
Well, thank you, Sri, for being on the Road to Growth podcast today. I mean, I appreciate it immensely. I'm going to just finish it off with this last word. I mean, what are some of the things, and I know you were an employee in a startup, but then you built your own startup. If you were to start a startup today, what are or someone's listening right now and they're looking to start a startup, what are some key takeaways or things that you would bring into it this time about?
The one thing that I think the person, when they're doing a startup, is they should ask is what is it that they uniquely bring that's going to help them be successful to that. So in my case, I uniquely brought in a sense that I understood software really well. I understood people because I've managed people, and I worked with in a consulting position with companies where I saw the issues people had with their managers and working with them. So I understood those two things. I may not have understood everything about the HR technology market or a SaaS product. So I think you need to figure out what is it that you uniquely bring that will help you be successful. Maybe it is because you grew up with playing with toys and now you want to start a toy company that you understand this. That is something you uniquely bring, right? Or maybe you work for a mortgage banker and now you want to start your own mortgage business. So if you bring something that's unique, that's going to give you that what I would call the unfair advantage. I think that's what you should really ask. Say, what is it that you have that's going to help you be successful?
Thank you again, Sri. If people are listening and they're looking to get more information about Engagely or see other ventures that you might be doing in the future, what's the best way of them getting more information?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. That's my best way to reach me. Sri Chellappa. My full name is Srikant Chellappa at Engagely. My email is schellappa@engagedly.com, and they can contact me there as well.
So you're open to all messages on LinkedIn, huh?
I am actually very very open on LinkedIn, to be honest. I mean, I don't like to necessarily always take sales calls, but I'll connect with you.
Yeah. Well, again, Sri, thank you so much. I think for everyone listening, I mean, hopefully you got some great nuggets right there. It's really lining up, even if, I mean, leaving your emotions at the door and lining up everything you're doing. Have the ability to say, hey, maybe this company is not right for me, or maybe I have to take a step in to hear someone out. But I think throughout this podcast, if you've listened, you've heard Sri talk about the idea of just laying everything out, being very analytical, and putting kind of the equation together to see kind of how you're going to get the best results. Thank you guys again for listening. Please subscribe, please share, and go in the show notes to find Sri. Bye, everyone.